If I'm having conversations with other Americans about why I left the US, usually I get a very strong response on maybe why that was the wrong thing, or they just don't really understand. Usually when I talk to Americans, I get to the point where they will agree that there are some significant problems in the US: safety, healthcare, inflation, quality of life, just all are trending downwards. And I think most Americans would agree that these problems exist, but they just think that it is either, still better than any other option out there, or that the problems exist and so we should stay here and fix them. And, so much so that they'll sort of get onto me or people like me about leaving the US, and they'll say, you should stay and fix the problems, and you're a coward for leaving and all this stuff. But years ago, I was very, very political. I watched all the debates. I read all the news. I read as many studies as I could. I would try to debate with people. I was very much involved with politics as much as I could. At the time, I was very conservative, so I was subscribed to, all the political right-wing subscriptions like the Daily Wire and all these things. And at the end of the day, in hindsight, I realized all that did, I wasn't actually making the country better. All that did was make myself mad. I was basically paying, and it's not just the Daily Wire that does this, but at the time it was the Daily Wire. I was paying people to make me mad. That's all that was really happening. I wasn't contributing. I wasn't making the country better in any way whatsoever. And even though I was very mad about the direction America was going, or the direction, even where it currently was, my anger and my frustration wasn't ever used in a proper way to actually change anything for the better. It just made me mad. It made the people around me mad. I got mad at other people. It was just not a healthy situation to be in. And so somewhere along the line, I started growing and realized that instead of focusing on the things that I can't control, I should focus on the things that I can control. I can't control the votes of 300 and however many million Americans. I can't control probably the majority of the US not listening to each other. I can't control how the healthcare runs. Sure, I can have influence over other people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I will have influence over other people, especially when someone, and this is unfortunately a lot of Americans, are just set on just not listening to other people. So it's like your options on actually influencing them are very limited. So when I moved from the mindset of, okay, I can't control these people, I can't control the direction of America, to what can I do, I felt this weight just lifted off of me. And I felt much more in control of my life, much more free, much more like I should actually think about how I want my life to run versus just get mad at someone else having maybe some control over my life because they're in the government or they disagree with me or all this stuff. And really, once I asked myself, okay, what can I do to mitigate the effects of this decline? The answer was, I need options, because I don't know the future. No one knows the future. Whatever happens in the future is just a guess, because we don't really know what the future holds. We can assume in probabilities what something might happen, but there are no certainties. So I think the best way to sort of navigate and play chess of the geopolitical environment is to have as many options as possible. One of those options is, if America somehow turns around and gets better and becomes more livable, becomes more safe, becomes just overall better, then I'm still an American. If I really wanted to, I could go back and live the life I used to live, but maybe it would be better. But I think most people miss this point. What if it doesn't? What if America continues this decline? What if another option is China becomes the global superpower and the US moves to number 2? How will that affect my life as an American living in America? And the answer usually is probably not very good. And I'm not saying this is all based around China. I think regardless of what China's doing or not doing, the US is still in decline. And people seem to get, and I used to do the same thing, so I get it, but people get too caught up in politics. They'll see, and sort of rightfully so, they'll see the problems in the headlines and the media, all the problems the media talks about, and then they'll blame the current party in power. But what I've realized is the political party really doesn't matter that much. It does matter. It does make some changes. But if you look at the trends on what's actually happening in the US, things don't really change between parties. It doesn't matter if Trump's president or Obama. I don't think things would really change overall from a macro perspective. I mean, we can see this with the debt of the US. I don't think the debt is as big of a problem as people say, or as at least some people say, because debt is really in relation to GDP or income. But it is still, the deficit at least is a very big problem. And if you look at past administrations, you can go back maybe 100 years. It doesn't matter if there was a Republican office or a Democrat, or I don't know if there was anyone else ever in office in the last 100 years, but if there were, it doesn't matter. The debt and the deficit still got bigger. And I think at some point we have to realize, okay, this system's not really working in our favor. You can fool me once, but really if you're fooling me twice, it's sort of my fault. If I'm still thinking that this broken system, in my opinion it is broken, is going to fix itself, and time again, you just look throughout history, it's not. I think really I should look inward and ask myself, why are you still trusting this system? And it's not just the debt. There are multiple problems, but I'm just saying debt is a very easy thing to measure, and you can easily see who has made the deficit smaller or larger, and over time it has just gotten larger. And so I don't think it's possible to know the future, but we can make assumptions about the future based off of probabilities. And the probability in which I assume that's going to happen in the future is that I think that current trends are very likely going to continue. I'm not certain that they will, but I think that's a relative good bet to make. If something has been going in one direction for the past 30, 40, 50, 60 years, it's probably going to continue. If it does continue, what's going to happen? I'm not a doomsdayist. I don't think all of a sudden America's going to crash and then everything's just going to be Armageddon and all that. I don't think that's going to happen. I just think that the trends are going to continue. And I already don't like where we're at now. So if it's going to only get worse in the areas that are trending worse, I'm not going to like it then either. And, some people may say, well, stay back and fight. And when the system's reset, we can all band together and we can, build a system that we want. And it's like, okay, well, you're making the assumption that I want the same system in place that most Americans want, because probably that's the system they're going to get. But the reality is, even if the left went into power and we're like, okay, we're resetting everything and we're setting up the system the way we want, I wouldn't want to live in that system. The same thing goes for the right. If the right came into power and we're like, we're going to make things the way I want, I wouldn't want to live in that system either. So when we talk about rebuilding America, I don't think it's going to be built in the way I want. I think what's most likely to happen is the majority's perspectives and opinions on how the government should run are going to be put into place. And that's maybe better than what it is today. And that's assuming that even happens, but it's still not the way I would like things to run. So I think what would be better for me to do, and maybe it's better for you to do as well, is to find a place that you can have options. Maybe you get a residence permit somewhere or get another citizenship somewhere, and you start building roots in other countries so that no matter what happens in one country, you still have another option. But the country you choose, I think this is where some Americans mess up. The country you go to is not going to be perfect. And if you walk around the earth thinking, okay, I'm looking for the perfect place, it doesn't exist. I might as well stay where I am. You're going to be very frustrated because it doesn't exist. But you have to look at life and you have to look at geopolitics. I love the analogy of a chessboard. I didn't come up with it, but I love that analogy of how life is like chess and how geopolitics is like chess. The moves might not be what you wanted it to be. The opponent may have moved a certain way and now you're in a kind of bad position or whatever. It's not perfect, but you have to make a move. So what are you going to do? So if you then reevaluate, okay, well, I'm not looking for somewhere that's perfect and exactly what I want, but I'm looking for somewhere that actually lets me live there and I net a better lifestyle than I had previously, then I think that's a win. And this particularly applies to Americans, I think. But because America is so big, and for other reasons, Americans don't really travel that much. And if I'm cynical about it, I'm kind of thankful they don't, because I want to keep the whole world to myself. But of course, I should not do that. And so I think Americans should travel. I think it would be best for them. It'd be better for the world. Honestly, you go and travel, and it's going to open up your mind to the realities of the world. You're going to realize that you were wrong about so many things that you're going to realize, oh, maybe actually America wasn't the place for me. And, I used to not always be like this. I used to think, like, what other country could you actually be proud of? But I think that mentality is not very healthy. I think you should be proud of things that you've actually accomplished, but I don't think you should be proud of things that you just are happenstance. You didn't choose to be born in the country you're in, but a lot of people are proud of that country. People will say, oh, well, America's great because we went to the moon and all this. I wasn't even born. I had nothing to do with America going to the moon. I contributed nothing to America going to the moon. I'm not going to take responsibility or pride in that. And I don't really think that you need to be proud of the country that you are from or even live in anyways. But I think this ruffles some feathers because some people don't have much else to grasp onto for their identity. And so they choose things like maybe their skin color or their gender or their age or the country they're from, things they can't control, not really. And they try to make that a part of their identity. And so when you take away, oh, well, you're no longer American, but you're now Portuguese or something, that shakes people up because that was their identity. But if you base your identity on just being an individual and the things that you've accomplished or the things that you've done and the people around you, that's a much healthier way to live life. A common pushback I get to the idea of leaving the US is that, why would you leave the best country in the world? And if you think it's the best country in the world, I don't blame you. I used to think the same thing for the majority of my life. But let's think through this together. In order for something to be the best, you need to be able to measure what it is that you're competing in. So if we look at statistics on what America is actually the best in, it's not that many things. It is actually not things in which you would think. Like safety, for example, depending on what you consider safety and which study you read and all that, it's definitely not the top 10. And most of the time, it's not even the top 30 or 50, but there are some studies I've seen where it's closer to 100. Either way, it is definitely not the best when it comes to safety. So we'll leave it at that. This video could go a lot longer, but maybe I'll do a part 2. If you disagree with me, I want you to comment and tell me why you think I'm wrong, or comment and tell me why you think I'm right, but don't just give me your opinion without the reasoning behind your opinion. I don't want to know you're stupid. I want to know why you think I'm stupid, because really it's the reasoning that we're going after in the first place. Opinions are cheap. Reasoning is expensive. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to follow me. I'm on my 9th year of digital nomading while I buy and build businesses that fund my lifestyle.